sounds like a story to me, some crazy fable that you would not believe. Oh, but ain't she...
Welcome to the Avram Davidson universe, where we listen to some of the greatest stories ever written, adored by Ursula Le Guin, Neil Gaiman, Leonard Nimoy, Ray Bradbury, and Stephen King. Enjoy classic tales such as Are All the Seas with Oysters, The Golem, Sources of the Nile, and many others.
Listeners, today's episode is a great one. Robert and I talk with Igor Teper. Igor is an author of fiction, poetry, and scientific essays, a physicist who uses lasers to teach old atoms new tricks, and longtime Avram fan. He lives with his wife and his sons in San Francisco Bay Area. For more about his writing, check out igorteper.com, IGORTEPER.com. This was such a fun episode to record because not only was Igor so insightful about the text in general, but he was also able to make deep Avram connections because he's so well-versed in Avram's work. So I hope you enjoy as much as I did. Hey, listeners, it's me and Robert. Hey. Hey, Robert.
Hey.
Okay.
It's a great,
They
great
need
intro.
to hear it.
Oh, yes.
And
Hello.
we're here with a super exciting guest today, Igor Teper, who reached out to Seth as a huge Davidson fan. And we were able to arrange this. We're literally all over the world. We're all in different time zones. And we were able to meet up right now through Zoom. Thank you, Zoom. And we're getting ready to discuss The Man Who Saw the Elephant. I want you to get a little introduction from Igor first. So Igor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm, as you said, I'm a huge Avram Davidson fan and have been for probably about 20 years.
Cool.
You know, in my sort of day-to-day life, I'm a physicist and I work on developing some sensors and fancy atomic clocks and things like that.
You're clearly so used to having to summarize what you do in such a simple way. Some sensors.
And then, you know, I also, you know, I write fiction, you know, when I have time.
Yes. Oh my God, Igor, you're seriously, I said this to you before, and then that's when Robert made a good point that we should start recording, is that I read one of the short stories, or the short story that you sent, and it was just phenomenal. Such an interesting topic. And maybe I can ask you this wasn't one of the pre-planned questions, but like Avram himself wrote a lot about the immigrant experience. And so I was wondering if like that is something that you connected with in his writing, because they weren't immigrants necessarily, but it was not an American perspective that you were writing from.
Yeah, so absolutely, that's very much the case. And I think, you know, the story of Avram's that I first really fell in love with was the Slovo Stove, which you know really like spoke to me very deeply, and I find very personal even to this day, which I reread it pretty often. You know, my own sort of, you know, cultural roots are kind of Eastern European, and I am an immigrant. And so, you know, I think it's a wonderful story, but it also really sort of, I found it an incredibly moving story, you know, for me personally as well.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great thing to open up a little bit more, because I've never actually directly talked to someone who was such a historically huge fan. So I'm wondering, like, what are some of the trends in Avram's writing? And then we can get into this story specifically. But what are some of the trends in Avram's writing overall that make you love him, that make you a fan?
So I think what it is in a lot of ways is that, you know, he's obviously a very sort of skilled writer and stylistically sophisticated, but he's not the only one. He certainly is up there near the top. But I think what really I find very particular about his work, and that I really love about his work, is sort of this sense of kind of an expansive sense of empathy or humanity or something like that, where he, you know, he really is able to kind of, you know, without judgment, kind of inhabit various perspectives in a very kind of empathetic and really open-minded way. And, to think that he was writing, decades ago is sort of, particularly, I think, telling that really, he can write from kind of any perspective and inhabit it with a sort of, with an honesty and an openness that I think is rare, even among very skilled writers.
I think we're going to go to
Yeah.
this story in a second, but I think you see that in The Man Who Saw the Elephant too. I want to talk about it later.
Yeah,
but
yeah. So I think, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stories, that even like The Necessity of His Condition, for example,
Oh yeah, I haven't read that. Yeah.
or The Grasses Grow. Similar sort of, he it's a, sometimes it's a righteousness, but sometimes it's just sort of a kindness.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Robert, we've talked about that in the past of like not really ever knowing who the protagonist is, which I think is part of
Oh, that's a
empathy,
good point.
right? Like you start siding with one person, thinking they're a good person, and then you also start feeling for other characters, and maybe you don't like the original person as much by the end of the story. And that's kind of what empathy is, which is really painting a full human picture of everyone and being realistic about it. And that's also something, like, if you had asked me, that wouldn't have been one of the first things that came to my mind when I think about what I love about Avram's writing. I would have, the first thing I would have said would be like, he's so funny and he's so creative. He's so unpredictable. The wide variety of things that he writes about and writes from is just like always, there's always that moment where I'm just like, oh my God, really? What? And then I just ride with it because he's a great writer and he can get me to ride with him. But you're right, that also, but all of that trickles from the ability to empathize, and the ability to inhabit so many different perspectives is what keeps it so rich and unpredictable for me, because I'm in my one limited person perspective. You see what I'm saying? Robert,
Yeah.
what would you have said if I asked you what's like draws you to his writing?
Well, I'd probably say the sentences and kind of the arc of lots of the different stories. But now I'm thinking that I like what Igor said a lot about the empathy, and it works with Emma and I. Igor, have read recently lots of the ones in the mystery collections. Yeah, and one that we read was A Quiet Room with a View. Have you read that one?
No, but I listened to your podcast about it.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. So that one, you got to read that one, and you've listened to it already. That one's so good because of the empathy, and like Emma said, like, yeah, I love this character. They can't be a murderer. I love this character too. Even if they're kind of a bit like, there's a kind of a stuffy character in that story. There's kind of a rude character in that story, but you can understand why they're doing what they're doing, and you don't see the end coming because the person who ends up being the murderer you like the whole time, kind of. And I feel like even in The Man Who Saw the Elephant, that really shows the empathy too, because the main character, who is kind of the butt of a joke, you like, and you don't feel like he's being made fun of at all, even though he's still kind of the butt of a joke. And I feel like it's almost, maybe, I don't know if this is true, but maybe he sometimes gave himself challenges to think of, like, if there's a character who's going to be made fun of, or if there's a character who's in a position not of power, how do I make them an empathetic character in a story? Like here, butt of a joke character feels like a hero in a way.
Yeah,
So
like I read
right.
the house. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I read the house
House
that
of Blankenese.
yeah. And when Seth and I talked about it, it kind of went right over my head that the Blakeneys were like supposed to be bad guys. I mean, even if they destroyed everything at the end, I know that. I was kind of like with them, you know what I mean? The whole time I was like, you guys are just doing your thing and you have a really close-knit community, and I don't know, I dug it. But then it happened at the end. But I was also like, yeah, change is scary. That is part of the human. Change is really scary. I didn't really think so much about the fact that they were inbred.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just me. Oh, so when I read this story also, that kind of went right over my head that he was a butt of any joke.
Mhm.
And so I was just like, oh, but then I read some of the other texts that Seth sent us like around this text. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Well,
Yeah, before we'll read it here in a
Mhm.
second. We'll listen to it and we'll discuss it again. But speaking of not noticing that it's a butt of a joke, maybe well, I'll just mention it and we can talk about it again. But at the end, when the joke is revealed, because I've been siding with this character so much, I'm thinking, yeah, I want to go see the elephant too. I would totally do this. By the end, I'm thinking, no, I read it wrong. He's not been made fun of. He's not the butt of a joke. I just read it wrong. And I had to read it again. And I said, oh no, he has really been tricked. He has he has really fallen for it. So yeah, Avram's really interesting in the way he does that. And your story, Brothers, Igor, you said is
Mhm.
Avram inspired.
Yeah, I would say so.
And is it kind of, Emma was talking about kind of an experience that is outside, that might have an immigrant experience.
Mhm.
Where is the empathy coming in your story, or what kind of Avram elements did you want to bring into your story?
So I don't, I think it was almost maybe not even like totally sort of, that I wanted to bring in. It's just that that's the kind of stuff I was thinking of at the time.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
I think when I
Natural.
wrote it, I was reading a lot of Avram Davidson. I think a lot of it sort of is, it's set in the 19th century, kind of in a somewhat, underexposed corner of the world. And then, and it has this, what I tried to make somewhat understated cryptozoology. Avram wrote about, mermaids and unicorns.
Oh
and
yeah, dragons. Yeah.
And so here we have a situation where, there's this character who is in fact a Yeti, an Asian Bigfoot, but sort of he's never described that way. He's just described as this, brother of the main character who, sleeps in a barn and has hair all over his body and this, can't talk but can sign and is huge. And so that was sort of, that was kind of, it's kind of those aspects that kind of those kind of historical, semi-historical cryptozoological themes, and then looking at sort of, what really it is that makes a home, essentially. I think that's something that is a sort of, a hallmark of immigrant literature and a hallmark of a lot of Avram's writings as well. And it's sort of, that's sort of a question that's posed in my story as well. Is the home where you live, is the home sort of what you can take with you from place to place, with your loved ones and sort of your memories.
Yeah. And you also kind of put it a little bit, there's a little bit of not necessarily a mystical element, but almost a mystical element. Like the Slovo stove, for example, like, is that a technology or is it magic?
Right.
Like was the brother human, or was he some sort of other type of superhuman creature?
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is that in the family, he's a family member. I mean, that's what he is first. And so, the grandfather and then the main character, Ali, both just treat him as a member of their family. Yeah, he's a little bit different. Well, everyone's a little bit different. So there's not really sort of he's, different sort of with a capital D. It's just that, he's his own kind of, peculiar person, but he's also a member of our family. And so he's accepted sort of implicitly because of that.
Yeah. And he's full of tenderness and love. And yeah, it was really awesome. It was really awesome. Hopefully we can
Thank you.
somehow get it to the listeners too. I feel like they would really like it.
Well, so it was published, but then sort of the magazine went under, and so it's not published anymore. But yeah, I'd love to get it reprinted if I can.
That'd be awesome.
Oh,
Our listeners
we should talk. That'd be cool. We should talk Deep Overstock. We'll get Igor on Deep Overstock. That'd be cool.
I see you.
To see what. Yeah, we'll get there. We got to see what themes we could do. I wonder childhood, maybe. Well, anyway, we'll talk, Igor. We'll talk about different publication options.
Maybe an elephant theme.
Well, we have the next themes we have are childhood, then knots, then romance, then the mysteries, I think. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see if one eventually fits. But Igor, you're welcome to write for any of those themes, any other stories too. It'd be cool. We've been hinting about the story too much. I think we better listen to it in case I've been so close to saying a few spoilers. So let's listen to this story now, and then we'll discuss it a little more in just a minute.
The Man Who Saw the Elephant. The story is short and quickly told. There was a man of the people called Quakers, whose name was Ezra Simmons, and he and his wife had a farm in the hills beyond Harperville. Esther Simmons was a woman who never rested during the hours she was awake, and the hours of her slumbers were few. It is recalled that she did once go down to the main road and sit on the stone fence there to see John Q. Adams go by the year he became president. It is also recalled that she took her spinning along to keep her hands busy. Waste not, want not, was a common word with her. And another such was, whatsoever thy hands find to do, do it with thy might. In short, she was one of those of whom the Scriptures speak, saying, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her. There was good reason for Ezra Simmons to trust in her. For had he trusted in himself, the cattle, often as not, would have gone unfed, the sheep unshorn, and the meadow unmowed. It was not that friend Simmons was a lazy man. The summer of 1800 froze to death, as some light-tongued folk called it. It would have been the year 16, give or take a year or two. He toiled late and early on an engine he intended should make shoe pegs. It never did make enough to fit his own shoes. And, meanwhile, his kine and his swine alike should have laid stark and cold had not his good wife Esther tended to them. Snow and hail in July. Truly, a heavy judgment upon a nation overgiven to vanities. But that is neither here nor there. Simmons' farm was neat and trim enough, and so was Ezra Simmons' gray coat, but his gray eyes looked beyond his farm. They looked beyond his native hills and, as he confessed, beyond his native country as well. Suppose, he said once to his wife, suppose a friend had a concern. He might go and preach unto those lost in darkness, and even now groaning beneath the spiritual tyranny of the Muscovite Caesar or the Grand Bashaw of High Barbary. Suppose a friend had a concern, Esther answered tartly. He might pick up his scythe and commence on the home acre. Too, Ezra had a great interest in curious and foreign beasts, and this, too, he voiced to his wife, from whom he concealed nothing. Does thee suppose, Esther, he would ask her, that the Bengal tiger, for an instance, is striped merely as our tabby, in gray and darker gray, or is it indeed striped in yellow, gold, and black, as Captain Pickett says? Esther, for her whole answer, would hand him the milk bucket and point to the barn. In truth, she was not over-fond of Captain Piggott, considering him and his tales an unsettling influence on Ezra. How large would thee say the whale-fish is, Captain Piggott? Her husband asked him once when he came a-visiting. As large as this farmhouse? As large as the meeting-house, the old mariner declared. Ezra exclaimed in wonder, but Esther was unimpressed. It is no affair of ours, John Piggott, she said, if the whalefish is as large as the meeting-house, or as large as 2 meeting-houses. When was the last time thee was inside the meeting-house, John Piggott? John Piggott coughed behind his hands, and shortly afterwards he took his leave. It was, accordingly, with no great surprise, and, for that matter, with no great attention, that Esther heard Ezra say to her one afternoon, after returning in the shay from Harperville, There was a broadside given out in the town, Esther, telling of a traveling show, which will make a visitation to the country seat come next second Sunday. Esther was at her churn, and the day was hot, and she spoke in a sharp voice without much heeding her words. Must thee be forever a-gadding after vanities, Ezra Simmons? He stood a moment, silent and taken aback, then turned and took up his axe. She heard him splitting firewood for a good long while, and then, scarcely giving time for the echo to die away, he was in the spring-house before her, as she paddled the roll of new-made butter. Does thee do well to rebuke me, Esther? He asked. She looked up, surprised, for she had clean forgotten the matter. In what way have I rebuked thee, Ezra? Is it vanity to look upon the great beast which the Lord hath made? Can it be that he hath made it for naught? I doubt not that the showman is one of the world's people, but can the great beast be less a marvel for that? Esther dabbled her fingers in the shallow pool fed by the spring and touched them absently to her face. "I do not understand thee," she said. "What marvel and what great beast is it of which thee speaks?" "The elephant, Esther Simmons! The elephant!" There was buttermilk to be put in crocks, and the crocks to be put in the well, potatoes to be peeled, and the peels fed to the hogs, and the potatoes to be put up for supper. There was a dried apple pie to be baked, and linen to be spread in the sun against yellowing and mildew. There was a labor of work, and scarce daylight to do it in, and Esther said, "I have lived in this world 45 years, friend husband, and I have never seen the elephant, nor have I ever been moved by the Spirit to see him yet." Ezra stood before her, his head bowed, his broad brim dusty from the wood he had been splitting, his hands folded on the handle of the axe. He stood there, thus, for quite some moments, and then, in a low voice, he said, "I have lived in this world for 49 years, friend wife. I have lived in this world for a jubilee of years, thee can reckon. I have never seen the elephant either, but I tell thee, friend wife, that I feel moved by the Spirit to see him now. For I truly believe that else I do, I shall never have the chance to see him again." There was hay in the meadow, ripe for the mowing, and shingle trees in the yard needing to be split for the roof of the barn. A cartload of corn stood as it had stood for 2 days unloaded. Esther did not hesitate. "Thee feels moved by the Spirit to see this elephant?" "They say it is the great beast behemoth of the Scriptures. Thee feels moved by the Spirit to see this elephant?" "I do." "Thee has a concern to see this elephant?" "I have." "Then thee must see him," she said. She rose before dawn on second day and baked fresh bread and put it in his wallet. She put in a roll of butter wrapped in green ferns and sliced meat and 3 apples and a jug of water and 1 of buttermilk. She paused to reflect if she had forgotten anything. It occurred to her that the world's people took money for preaching the word of the Lord, and this, being the case, might also require to take money for showing the Lord's creatures. She took a brick out of the fireplace and, reaching in her hand, pulled out a sock. From the sock's scanty store, she selected a Spanish-milled dollar, and she put this in her husband's wallet, too. He led out the horse and harnessed it. "Will thee not come with me, Esther Simmons?" he asked. Again she shook her head, and again she made the same reply. "I have not been moved by the Spirit to see the elephant, nor am I moved to see him now." And she turned to her work, and to his work, too. Ezra drove down the white, dusty country roads. He rode past fields ripe with grain, and past orchards heavy with fruit. People called out to him, but he did not pause to talk. He rode over rattling bridges and beside mudflats covered with eelgrass and salt hay, and turned inland again, through granite hills. He stopped at times to water the horse, and then he drove on again. The sun was on the decline when he arrived at the country seat, and he drew up and called out to a man afoot. "Friend, can thee tell me where the showman is, who has the foreign beast to see?" "Showman? There bain't no showman here." Ezra lifted his hat slightly. The evening breeze cooled his head. "There was a broadside given out to Harperville," he said, "which related that such a person was to be here come second Sunday. Showbill, I recollect now. Someone did arrive in a caravan, all painted in outlandish colors, yes, a foreign-looking man, as you say, but the selectman wouldn't give him leave to stay, so he went on. Who knows what mischief he might be up to?" Ezra set his hat down. "How old of a man would thee say he was, friend?" he asked. The town fellow scratched his head. "Hard to say. Might have been 30, might have been 40. Why?" 30 or 40. The Lord has given him leave to tarry in this world for 30 or 40 years, and thee would not give him leave to tarry in this town for so much as a day." He shook up the reins and drove on, leaving the townsman with mouth agape. The sun set. The sweet smell of the earth rose into the night air. The moon came up, broad and yellow. "Thee sees how it is, friend horse," Ezra said to the plodding animal. It was not the Lord's will, it seems, that I should look upon the countenance of his great beast Behemoth, which men call the elephant. So be it. I have dwelt all my days within the circle of these hills, and if at times I have felt it to be a somewhat smaller circle than I could wish, still I have never wished to go against his will." The horse whinnied, and then it shied. Startled, but not so much to forget the account of Balaam and the ass, Ezra Simmons peered into the silvery road ahead. He saw no angel there. He saw a wagon painted over with strange devices drawn over to the side of the road. Horses tethered to the tree raised their heads and nickered. A curtain at the back of the caravan parted, and a man appeared. In his hand was a lamp. Rings glittered in his ears. "Is thee the person called a showman?" asked Ezra. "I am that very one, Reuben. My name is not Reuben, friend, it is Ezra. I have come to see your great beast." The man gestured Ezra inside. There was a bright quilt on the wagon bed, and a woman sat on it with a child at her breast. Her legs and arms were bare, and so, though she smiled at him, he turned aside his head. The man led him to a door in a partition and held out his hand. "There's no money at all in the last town," he said, "and no bread grows by the sides of the road." "What money is the fee?" The showman shrugged. "I take any money that'll pass muster. York shillings, United States gold and silver, fips and thrips and picayunes. I take paper notes of all New England states as well as New York and Pennsylvania. Virginia and Carolina I take at a discount, but as far as the wildcat currency of Tennessee and Missouri, them I do not take at all." Ezra felt in his wallet. "I have naught but one old piece of 8, he said. "I take them too. Come along." It smelled musty in the large space beyond the partition. It smelled odd and wild. It smelled of strange places and strange things, and it smelled most of all of strange beasts. Shadows danced, and something rustled in the soiled hay. Something made an odd sound. The showman held out his lamp. "There he be," he said. "Have ye ever seen the like before?" "Nay, friend," said Ezra. "I never have, and never will again. Hold the lamp steady." He looked into the eyes of the strange beast, and the strange beast looked into his own eyes. There was silence. "Thee has a canny look about thy face," Ezra observed. "I believe that thee would laugh if thee but could. So, and this is the behemoth of the Scriptures." The showman took out a piece of pigtail tobacco and thrust it into his mouth. "Now, as to that, I cannot say. On that subject, I am coy." "The elephant, then?" The showman mumbled his chew. He said. This is the only foreign beast thee has? Thee has no other?" After spitting a brown stream into the straw and wiping his mouth on the back of his hand, the showman shook his head. "Had another one. It died over a week ago. A great loss, believe me." Ezra took another look at the beast, and the beast at him. Then, tentatively, he reached out his hand and touched it. The creature nuzzled at his hand, then sniffed his pockets. "Would thee eat an apple? I believe thee would." He watched it eat the apple. Then it turned away. "Thee is right," Ezra said. "It is time I was gone." At the door, foot on the step, he turned around. "If thee has by chance a likeness of the beast?" he asked. "But I have no more money with me." The showman waved his hand, rummaged in a box, produced a sheet of paper with a woodcut on it, the precise likeness of the beast. "No need to mention money. Take it, my compliments. You're the only gent I met today." He stooped, grunted, took out a demijohn, gurgled it. "Splice of the main brace?" "Nay, friend, I thank thee. But I must be getting back to Esther Simmons." He peered at the paper, lips moving slowly. "What is the meaning of this strange word?" he asked. The jug gurgled again. The showman lowered it a bit. "Oh, that. Why, Commodore, that there is the animal's name in its native language." Ezra's lips moved again. "The Hebrew is a sacred tongue. How full of awe its syllables be. Kangaroo. There. I have it now. He took the showman's hand. Friend, I thank thee, he said, with all my heart. Thee little knows what thee has done for me. My soul is now at rest within me, like a weaned child. Earrings glittering, wet mouth smiling, the man said, Don't mention it. But say, like to take a look scot-free at the very hat old Boney wore at St. Helens Island? Or a parmacated tooth, eh? Do? Ezra shook his head. His eyes were gray and very gentle. What care I for such things, friend? I have seen the elephant. What more is there for me to see? Afterward, to the man who saw the elephant. Friend, I hope you got a chuckle out of this story. I certainly did. I once lived near a community of Quakers, or Friends. They were gentle people who still drove horses and buggies when everyone around them was driving steel and chrome. Were they simple, or were they simply as satisfied as the man who saw the elephant? Henry Wessels reminded me that the man who saw the elephant once meant someone who had been to San Francisco during the gold rush of 1849. So, perhaps there's more to this simple story of bait and switch than first appears. Grania Davis.
So,
It's a great story. It's a great story, and I think it's one of those that sort of really rewards rereading because it has really wonderful details sprinkled throughout. And then once you have the ending, you kind of you can reread it with sort of a slightly different just angle or perspective on it. I think
that's very true. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I was surprised even at the ending because I felt siding with the character so much. I was sure I was going to see an elephant. And then by the reveal, what is this word on this paper? Oh, that's the beast's name in its native language. Kangaroo. I thought that was great.
Well, I mean, I think that really is sort of, that is the magic of Avram's writing. At least my feeling is that on the one level, it is true that that he did not literally see a literal elephant as we understand it, but it is clear, at the end or in the end, that in his mind he has conjured up an elephant, like he has created an elephant, and sort of Avram has conveyed that process of sort of imaginative and faithful creation, sort of through the power of his writing. It's really, I think it really is an amazing ending. We have this is a story that has no speculative elements, none. It's just like a straight up, it's kind of the perspective is maybe a little bit offbeat, but there are no speculative elements in the story. But I feel like, that ending, what else is there? Just like that perspective of his, of Ezra's at the very end, that awe is, evokes kind of the sense of wonder that is a cliche in kind of science fiction is like, but there it is, like more pure than any kind of gee whiz, hard SF, anything. Like that is sense of wonder, and that's part of what I really love, about that story. That's probably one of the main things.
Oh yeah, I didn't think that it is like a speculative sense of wonder where the character is seeing something that no one has ever seen, that is rare, that is special, and it's totally false here.
That's right.
But he's like, wow, I've still seen the elephant.
And you believe it.
Like
I mean, at least, reading it, you really can inhabit that perspective and believe it. And I think that, that's why, I think it's one of sort of a distinctively Avram kind of story where, even other very sort of stylistically sophisticated writers, might instead have written it as sort of a story of, some naive innocent who gets beaten down and taken advantage of by the cruel world. But from the outside, that may seem what the story is, but if you really inhabit, Ezra's perspective, that's not what it is. It really is a story of sort of, the triumph of the imagination in some way.
I
That's
think
very
that's
true.
phenomenally put. Like, just, having read a lot of Avram's stuff, you always know, or at least now I always anticipate, like, when is this going to take a turn? Some reality that's being established is about to get yanked out from underneath me. And I like what you said, where it's the magic isn't so much of like we're wondering what the magic is, but we're now witnessing someone else experience the magic. And that is like cool psychological layering that takes a lot of skill to set up.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just sneakily searching through the document, trying to find the name of the story I only read maybe 4 days ago, and now I can't remember the name of the story. There's an Avram story that we did. I interviewed 2 people from the Genre podcast, and we did a story about a man who he's a naval officer, not even an officer, he's just an enlisted man in the Navy, and ends up, he's an American and living in China. And there's no speculative elements in that either. But by the end, this man is convinced himself he is so important that he has become a kind of a fish god, but maybe through magic or maybe just through too many drugs, he is now convinced he is a goldfish stuck in a bowl. Well, he's convinced he's a god. Yes, Dagon. Dagon, exactly.
Yeah.
So the Dagon story, I feel like, is kind of similar in a maybe not negative sense, but kind of in a, there's a sense of wonder that's a trap in that one. It's still kind of that speculative sense of wonder of turning a man into a fish or to a god. But it's like a little scary. This one is a much more, I don't know, a nice sense of wonder. But it's interesting that Avram could do that, where you have no actual magic or no actual science, well, I mean, speculative fiction or any futuristic devices, and you still have that reaction in the character and in the reader, where you're both thinking, did what I think happened really just happen?
Yeah.
I think, go, sorry, Emma.
No, I was just like, yeah, that's what I was just saying. Yeah, because that sounds familiar.
Yeah. He's able to do that very well. I think Grania says in the afterword, what does she say? Oh yeah, she says, Henry Wessels reminded me that the man who saw the elephant once meant someone who had been to San Francisco to see the gold rush of 1849. So she says, perhaps there's even more of the bait and switch than first appears. I think Avram's very good at these bait and switch stories where there's multiple layers.
I think that's true. And I think that is what's going on here. And that's what we've been talking about, is that sort of the surface bait and switch is that he thinks it's an elephant, but it's really a kangaroo. But the sort of the deep bait and switch is that he's shown a kangaroo, but he sees an elephant.
Yeah.
So that, you think that he's the butt of a joke, but really he's not. He is, he's going to be happy for the rest of his life and sort of filled with awe for the rest of his life because of this experience.
Yeah.
And what's more is that he's going to go back into a community of people who also have never seen an elephant. And so he is now going to be the man who saw the elephant.
Right.
So he's going to get the clout and the expertise. And he's going to be known as the man to go to for the answers.
That's right. He's got the picture and everything.
Got the picture. It's like, what is that phrase where it's like, it's more, the people who know a little bit are like more dangerous than.
A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, I think so. Right. But that's general sentiment, right? Is kind of where it's at. But I don't think this guy is dangerous. I think his soul is now at rest within him, like a weaned child.
I wonder though, are he and Esther going to be okay now? Esther's very anti-elephant.
I think so. I mean, I also love their relationship here because it's really clear that sort of that he's kind of this, even this community, of Quakers who are in some ways, very down to earth and practical, but also, innocent in a lot of ways, that he is sort of not down to earth, but is, even more sort of childlike and innocent in a sense. And Esther's kind of, she loves him and, she is maybe the more down to earth one. And he is sort of this kind of, dreamer. But because, but she recognizes that and she's like, look, I wouldn't care about an elephant, but if this is important to you, just do it. Like I will support you. And I think that's, that is what, a great, partnership is like, where like you accept the other person. They're not the same as you, but you will support them in what they think is important to them. And she said, yeah, if this is important to you, do it. I will support you. Take this, this hard-earned, Spanish dollar and go. And he's like, all right, thank you. And he will be grateful to her for the rest of his days, and we'll be telling her about what a great experience she supported.
So you're optimistic.
Or at least that's how I see it.
Relationship's gonna go. Igor, I wanted to ask you, in that vein of like all the characters that are in this story, which one did you connect with the most?
I think one of the great things about an Avram story is that you can sort of connect on some level with every character. I would say, certainly Ezra Simmons really, is so richly painted that it's almost impossible not to connect with him when you read this. But at the same, I mean, I think actually the carnival man, the swindler, I think there's sort of a subtle thing happening with him, is that he takes the guy's money. He's like, well, I have this beast, and then Ezra's all excited. He's like, well, is it an elephant? And he says, well, I'm not going to tell you. On that I am coy.
I'm not I'm coy, yeah.
And he's kind of, oh, I'm going to chew on this piece of straw or whatever. And so, you can see that how, in one sense, it's self-interested, because he doesn't want to say, no, it's not an elephant, so here's your dollar back or whatever, and have this irate guy. But at the same time, he is, in a sense, within the world of the story, really giving Ezra a great gift, that Ezra is now able to sort of, define for himself what it is that he saw. Now, he's not intending to do that, but that is in fact sort of what he ends up doing.
Almost like a fiction writer.
I don't think he lies even, right?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Yeah,
He's sort of, I'm not gonna say one way or the other.
That's out on a technicality.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had to do it, right? He had the woman, was she obviously pregnant, or was she with child or something? She was nursing a child.
Nursing, yeah.
And she was, fully nude, and like then there's this brief snapshot into this man's life. The showman is like, I'm immediately like, all right, do you, like, okay, swindle this guy. He's got the perfect, everybody wins this situation.
Right.
Even though everyone's wrong. Igor, what moments in this story like stood out to you most?
Well, I mean, I think, it's sort of, there's just so much dramatic impact, on that, kangaroo, as that's in there. It's just Hebrew. I mean, I feel like that really sort of, it opens it up. It really, opens up the story in such a powerful way. I feel like, that really is probably the most impactful. And I think it's designed to be that way. And Avram really builds up to it kind of slowly, and then you feel like, I feel like I understand this story. And then three slow syllables, and then you're like, oh, all right.
That is such a hard thing to do.
It is,
especially like with reading, because I listened to it at first, so it was really like, whoa. But like reading it as well, you don't give it away. He doesn't give it away. You know how sometimes you can like see at the bottom of the page kind of what happens. Do you know what I mean? I just like he was built up to it in such a gripping way that you don't spoil it for yourself by skipping ahead. And the payoff is proportional to the suspense created for it, which is always really dangerous when you're trying to set up a punchline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in some ways, it's that understated, the fact that, it's not like there's like, he's building up dramatic tension. You just keep reading, and sort of, it's kind of going on, he sees the creature, he kind of interacts with it. And it's this, this nice, moment. And then you're like, okay, so, what next? And then you realize, oh, that sort of, that there was this sort of this buildup, but you didn't even understand that was happening until, the kangaroo. And then you're like, yes, okay, I see that it's all just been building, and that's part of Avram's talent and his skill.
I like, we've talked when we were talking about empathy, and that even though the character is like a butt of a joke, that they're still the hero of the story. I think that is, we could call it a twist, but it's kind of a special twist where we've been building up to, we're going to see the elephant, then we see a kangaroo. This guy's an idiot. We don't feel that way at all. We like him a lot. It's almost like, I feel, an invitation for the writer, the character, and the reader to all participate in something. Kind of equally, even though like there's a bit of dramatic irony where we know something the character doesn't know. It's almost like the character does know it, and they're just going to insist that they've taken what they like, and they like this reality. And we're doing something together, I feel like.
You're so right. There's like something at the end where it's like, if this was real and I really knew this person, there would always be this like pressure on me to not tell them. But now leave it at the door. worry about whether or not I have to live with the fact that this person's living a lie. There's something nice about being like, it's okay for this guy to live a lie. Like, we don't have to do anything. You know, he's just gonna be happy. Okay.
It reminds me of the story Sechevreul, where there's the monkey, the monkey boy, and by the end you're like, well, I think he's a monkey boy. I'm not totally sure if he's a monkey boy, but he's been lied to by this kind of evil person, or really not a very nice person. Lied to. His carnival friends, the carnival freaks, come and save him. There's kind of an invitation in that one too, where it's like an invitation to kind of friendship between you, the character, the writer, and their group of friends. It comes in at the end where there's the twist that I don't know, puts the villain in their place, I guess, and puts kind of the participation of friends in a nice game, a nice little party, something like that. Not sure what I'm trying to say there.
So, I was thinking about sort of what other stories this kind of ending is like, and in particular about, we have the situation where the fact that it's not actually an elephant kind of elevates the symbolic power of Ezra's belief that it is an elephant. And so it's actually, I was thinking it's one of the best known really stories in the English language, O. Henry's The Gift of the Magi. So where you have this situation where, the couple, get each other these gifts, but they sell their most precious thing to get each other these gifts, and the gifts are accessories for the other person's most precious thing. Which and so you read this, and so sort of at that level, it's sort of a sad irony. But then in the end, the point is that it's a story of love, and they're elated really, and then they're. I mean, O. Henry, is not as subtle a writer as Avram Davidson, and so he comes out and he says, you might laugh at these two people, but they really are the wisest, and the happiest. Basically, there's a little coda to the story that is literally the end of the story where he says something to that effect. And I think the same thing is true here, where the fact that there's not a material gain, just like in the Gift of the Magi, there's not a material gain from the gift. So then, sort of the symbolic value of the gift as just expressing their love for each other then becomes that much more elevated. And so here, this act of sort of will and imagination, really elevates, this perception of the elephant more than, seeing an actual elephant would, kind of within the story.
Yeah, like the love in the O. Henry story, or the imagination and the love of imagination triumphs, even in the face of denial,
right?
Or the face of the counseling it out.
Interesting. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think faith oddly plays like a large role in this as well. So like maybe instead of that romantic love being what's satisfied, it seems like there's definitely religious imagery and sentiment interwoven throughout this entire piece. And that's what he says at the end, my soul is now at rest with me. It sort of spiritually satisfies him, whereas Esther in the beginning was already sort of spiritually satisfied. And you know what, if there's no material gain, but there's all the spiritual gain, great. I'm not gonna laugh at him.
I'm gonna say nice elephant every time I see his picture of a kangaroo.
So you know what I did get suspicious at one point about? I was like, can an elephant eat an apple?
I love that part.
Did that get anybody else?
Eat an apple?
Elephants eat apples? I guess. I
They might. Do kangaroos eat apples? Apparently this one does.
I feel like a kangaroo is more versatile than an elephant.
That's true. Elephant just eats peanuts.
That's what I'm thinking, but who knows? I don't know.
I want to steal one of Emma's questions that I think is really good. Because we've been talking a little bit about speculative fiction. Again, I mean, because Avram often writes speculative fiction, but this is set, I guess, to us maybe 150 years ago, 200 years ago. Anyway, a long time ago. So there's no future as far as we're concerned, but for the characters, this is an animal they've never, ever seen before. There's only legends of it. So it has kind of a future feel to it, or a speculative feel to it. So Emma's question is, it's hard to fathom a time when elephants were unfathomable. In this, no one's ever seen an elephant. So are there any like modern parallels to that kind of impossible thing that we're all looking forward to see. Is that what you're going for, Emma? I like that. I stole your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like it kind of, yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's hard to imagine anyone not knowing something. And is there a modern man who saw the elephant, either an Ezra or like someone who is that stereotype or archetype?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like with with people going into space, there is some of that. Like people talk about sort of this mystical experience of like seeing the Earth from space, or at least people who have been to space, which I think is sort of a I don't think people doubt that it exists, but it is sort of this kind of awe-inspiring thing.
That's true. Getting up into space, seeing the big blue marble.
I think there is a phenomenon too. I didn't think of this going into it. I was just like, it's like, now who's gonna like, is this even possible in the internet where anybody can know anything at any time? But I think it does still happen a little bit with experiential things where people go abroad and many people romanticize it. And like, I even find it with myself where when I've traveled places, people kind of are almost more impressed by it than I have. And like, will ask me a lot of questions. And I'm like, I was just there for a little bit. Like, I don't know, but I'm sure if I was that type of person, I could lean into it and speak on behalf of the Moroccan people when I share what my experience was there. And it's different now. I don't think there's maybe as much of an appetite, at least in America, the parts that I'm in, to go and just see an elephant or just see a kangaroo. Like, people want the experience and going somewhere to see it in there. Its habitat is kind of what I feel people are more drawn to now. And then they come back as then the man who saw the elephant, but it's no longer enough to just see one. Now you need to go and you need to see the whole cultural context that it is, which always feels a little iffy to me.
I mean, because I'm steeped in Bigfoot. We're working on a Bigfoot podcast. I just immediately thought of, seeing something that no one else can believe or that there are only legends of, but it feels totally different when you think about, I've seen Bigfoot or someone I know has seen Bigfoot. Often you're like, okay. The same with ghosts, certain people, yes, do absolutely believe they've seen ghosts, but when you hear about it, sometimes you think, I might listen to you. I don't know if I'll believe that or not. But this is different. It's confirmed that there is an elephant. People all know that it exists, but there's no, the Quakers at least, I don't know about people nearby, but they have no access to pictures of elephants to the extent that if, not Esther is his wife, Mr. Ezra, sorry. Ezra, thank you. Ezra Simmons, when he brings back the kangaroo, everyone will believe it's an elephant. Yeah. Like, he has the picture and they'll say, oh yeah, okay, we know now. Yeah. And I think there is a sense of wonder for Bigfoot hunt or people who are interested in Bigfoot, but it does feel different coming back into society. He comes back into society, everyone will say, oh, you've discovered something. You've gone out into the wilderness and discovered something we know was there. But Bigfoot is different. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe space or travel.
Robert, what that makes me think of is some of these zoological discoveries where like they find kind of living fossils. I think like the coelacanth, a few decades ago, or like I think a few years ago where like there was always stories of, well, there's these giant squid, but they're bigger than the giant squid you think of. They're even bigger.
Colossal.
And then they would, every once in a while, they would find the colossal squid, and it was like, here's the first time ever we observed the colossal squid. And it's, this enormous thing that you think probably was just exaggeration before then, but no, it's a real thing. Maybe not quite the medieval kraken, but really, something that was, semi-mythical that turned out to be real, and now that sort of is there are photos or videos.
Yeah.
That's true. The people that catch fish too, I think that when they catch giant fish and you take a picture of the giant fish, I've caught a shark or I've seen a shark in these waters, kind of like big fisherman's tales. Yeah. But the zoological discovery is something more special.
Yeah, you get cred for one thing, but you don't get any cred for seeing Bigfoot.
You just get doubted. That's
the difference.
Yeah, that's true.
No street cred. It's just kind of like, get out of here.
Yeah.
At least I think. I don't. No offense to the Bigfoot viewers. Have you seen Bigfoot?
I've not seen we published a story recently. It's a Bigfoot romance where the character who sees Bigfoot tells people about it, and he's a weightlifter, so he goes to the gym every day and he starts telling people about it, and then he gets so embarrassed because no one will believe him, and they'll say, of course you haven't seen Bigfoot. Oh, there's the guy that's seen Bigfoot, that he just goes to another gym. So there's a sad element in that, like this is like, I will bring you back the elephant. If you bring back Bigfoot, people are just gonna shake their heads.
Yeah.
I do love Bigfoot though. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we have one final question that we ask every guest. Robert, do you want to hit Igor with this question?
Oh, sure. I always leave this one till last minute, and I need to think of some good examples, but this is really fun because the goal is we got to get some of these Avram stories into Netflix. That we got to make it happen, either into a movie or to a TV show. So this is a really good question that Seth has devised. If this story were made into or adapted into movie or TV, what genre do you see it being? Could it be a play too? And then are any actors, any stars that you like, do you see them playing any of these characters? Let Igor go first. I'm still trying to think of good actors.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it would work as a short film. I think it would work as a play also. I think there's not a lot going on that you need some elaborate filmmaking props for. I mean, I think there's just a few characters and some key dialogue. And in terms of who would play at least Ezra and Esther were the ones that I've thought about, and sort of I think there's kind of two ways to go. One maybe for a little bit more of a dramatic and a little bit more star power. I would say that Ezra Simmons would be maybe somebody like Ryan Gosling. I think of him in like Lars and the Real Girl as sort of being this kind of naive, innocent kind of character. I think he could do that really well. And then for Esther, I was thinking maybe Naomi Watts. So that was the sort of the big Hollywood one, and then there's sort of the more kind of lighthearted one. I don't know if you know that sort of the sitcom The Office. I think sort of there's two people that were there was Steve Carell as Michael Scott, and then Amy Ryan as Holly Flax. I think had a very similar chemistry where he's this kind of somewhat wacky, a little bit childlike guy. And she is not, she's more practical, but she sort of meets him halfway, and she will have this banter with him. And so to me, that I think that they sort of have a very similar, relationship within that show. And so then I could see the actors kind of doing well as Ezra and Esther.
Oh man,
as well.
Really cool. I like that too.
That too.
Making the distinction between if it was a drama, these people, if it was a comedy, these people. I really only imagine drama in my head. Even though there were little things that made me laugh throughout the story. Overall, I was thinking Frances McDormand for Edith.
Oh.
And I feel like there's just so much to Edith. There's like so many depths and like but like a fortitude. And she doesn't have to say a lot, but you can just see there's a lot of stability there. And then I couldn't think of anyone for Ezra, except for the one actor who's also named Ezra, and I was just like, I know that's the only reason you keep thinking is him. But then for the showman, I was thinking, do you guys know the show Peaky Blinders? No,
heard of it, yeah.
Okay, well, there's one character who's named Alfie Solomon, and he's kind of just like I don't know, kind of like a dealing, runs like Camden Market in London, like during the 1920s, 1930s, and kind of just like a gangster guy, but he also has like a little soft spot I can tell in him for like his friend, even though he's always hard. So I can imagine him like having a moment in this where he's like comes across as a really hard guy, but you can tell he's just like having a soft moment for this one guy, and it's like we're just two guys who are trying to do our best.
Just gonna throw him a bone.
Yeah.
I like that. I was thinking similar kind of reasons. I was thinking maybe Keanu Reeves for Ezra, I think. You know, I feel like him and Steve Carell, I would totally believe. You know, I know you've seen a kangaroo, but I'll go with you. I will absolutely respect that you've seen an elephant. Maybe like Renee Zellweger for Esther, and then I was thinking potentially Willem Dafoe for the showman, with the just never closing his eyes. Maybe a little too intense.
Oh, that's him. Oh, that's good. That's
That might be
really
too intense for the showman, though.
good.
You're going to see an elephant no matter what I tell you. Oh, okay. Maybe
Oh,
go the
man.
wrong direction. But no.
Wow. Well, I would be so happy to see it. It would be such a fun little short film. And it would be very fun to do in film because you can also play with the reality. Like, let's see how gullible we can make the audience too, depending on like, you know, what you show them, what you don't show them. It's like a really interesting medium to add to this.
I think so too. And people who do that really well. Sorry, I just was thinking some directors that might be good, even though this is the most obvious choice for any movie. I think the Coen brothers would be really good. They made that the Western that's what it is. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Have you guys seen that?
Yep. Yeah.
It's like 6 shorts and 6 short stories in film. Yeah, they're films, but they're little tiny films. I think they'd be really good at doing an Avram Davidson collection, especially of these like non-speculative stories, the ones that are just totally set in reality. I think it'd be cool.
It's really
you could have like a panning shot where like somehow the kangaroo's hand reaching for the apple or looks a little bit like a trunk, like it's ambiguous. You know, and then the guy kind of looks at the picture, and then you see the picture of the kangaroo, and then he looks up, and you kind of pan from this trunk / paw, and you see, oh yeah, it's a kangaroo. It's not an elephant.
Yeah, you direct this, Igor.
Let's get Igor to direct it. Yeah,
I love that.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
Wow,
that would be cool. Yeah, we just take it in our own hands. We'll start making the Avram shorts.
There it is.
That'd be cool. Okay.
Igor, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, I'm thrilled to do it. Thank you for having me.
This is awesome.
This is a really fun one. This is we could really go in depth on a lot of things here because we've all read a lot of the same stories.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah, super refreshing and like a unique episode in a great way.
Yeah, I think so too. And Igor, we gotta get you. We're gonna work some deep overstock deals here soon.
Good.
We'll do some of this. We'll get some.
I see you, Robert.
My blanket fort is starting to collapse. I better go before this collapses.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna say good night.
Okay.
Igor, you're gonna say good evening or good afternoon, and then Robert, you're good morning.
Good morning. I will see you guys in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, you already have. All right.
Right.
Goodbye.
Very good to meet you, Igor. Good to see you, Emma.
Thank
See you guys later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye, guys.
It sounds like a story to me, some crazy fable that you would not believe.